everyone. Welcome to our Signals Notebook Connect community series in 2024. My name is Diana Tran. I am the Senior Product Marketing Specialist here at Revity Signals and will be your moderator for this session. This ongoing Signals Notebook community series will be an opportunity for you to learn about newly added Signals Notebook functionalities and hear how others are using Signals Notebook to improve productivity and data transparency through enhanced collaboration. As always, we want to hear from you. If you have any suggestions on topics for our upcoming Connect, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I will input my email in the open chat on the right-hand side. This Connect will focus on how Revity Signals is revolutionizing inventory management with Signals Notebook's inventory system and success stories at EMD Electronics. And then just to let you know, all sessions are recorded and available for streaming at revitysignals.com. A couple of quick housekeeping reminders before we start. We will have ample time at the end for questions, so please submit your questions through the question box located on the right-hand side of your screen. Future dates for Signals Notebook Connect for 2024 have been shared along with this registration, so I hope you will join us for the for our last webinar of the year, scheduled for November 6th, where we'll take a comprehensive look at 2024's most impactful features and innovations. So we hope you will join us in the next one as well. So our agenda today includes the latest Revity Signals inventory features by Jen Miller, who will review the most recent release features for inventory, showcasing the latest tools and capabilities to optimize inventory management. The second will be Signals implementation at EMD Electronics, revolutionizing inventory management in R&D with Lara Dabrowski, where she will share their experience implementing Signals, highlighting integration with IT solutions and business objectives for optimal inventory management. The third will be real-world impact, where Richard Ho from EMD Electronics will share how he has been using inventory and how it's made his life easier. And so it made his life and his team's easier. He'll also discuss about his experience with the process and provide some insights. And then, of course, lastly, we'll do the live Q&A. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers for today's webinar. Our first speaker is Jennifer Miller. She is our Senior Product Manager at Revity Signals and is responsible for Signals Notebook's inventory, materials, and Signals Research Suite. Prior to Revity Signals, she worked in the pharmaceutical industry for over 15 years in the development of small molecule drugs for cancer and inflammation. She holds a degree in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology. Our second speaker for today is Lara Dabrowski. She is a chemical engineer holding a master's degree in chemistry engineering with over 13 years of experience in pigments, coatings, innovations. She has led research and customer projects, optimized lab processes, and supported IT projects. Her expertise extends to R&D, Evonik, customer activities, and research on conductive materials from Siba, Switzerland. For the past 2 years, Lara has been working at Merck KGaA as a senior BPA and SME for Signals Notebook within IT for R&D, where she focuses on propagation and enhancement of S&B Signals Notebook across multiple sites. Her expertise also includes lab automation, safety features, and regulatory compliance. Lastly, we have Richard Ho, who is currently the R&D operations manager at EMD Electronics. He holds a bachelor degree in chemistry. He has over 20 years of experience across many job functions: quality control chemist, senior analytics chemist, research chemist, EH&S specialist, research operations manager, focusing on safety and sustainability. As part of his safety responsibility, he is responsible for ensuring chemical inventories that are accurate and up to date, ensuring we are in regulatory compliance with federal, state, and county regulations. So without further ado, I will go ahead and have you take over, Jen.
Thank you. Diana, thank you everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and focus. As Diane said, I am Jen Miller. I've been working with products for quite some time in a variety of different ways, so you may have seen me before. I will start by saying, inventory is a work in progress. The first little versions of inventory came up about 3 years ago in Signals Notebook, and since then we've been working with customers directly and users and getting feedback about what's important to them, and then putting out features and functionality ever since then. And that's about 10 times a year you'll see new features come out. So I'm going to just kind of lightly touch on all the things that we've done this year, and then I'm going to turn it over to Laura, who's really the star of the show with a lot more focus on how it is to implement this to a bunch of different users. So further, we'll get into this. Diana, can you share the control? Everything works beforehand, right? Demos always do this. Okay, let's go ahead and start and jump right in. All right, so one of the things that we added this year was a none safety feature. So that is a very different scenario than if there was a scenario where nobody filled in the information for the hazard. We wanted to be able to be very clear that there was no hazard information associated with that particular material. So we went ahead and added that as an additional feature. So it's a green box with the 00 hazard. We also added the ability to see the icons, the safety hazards, and the little eye where you can hover over and get more information into the materials tables. We went out originally with it just in the stoichiometry table, thinking that it was mostly chemists that were interested in this, and we were wrong. There was a lot of other folks that use the materials tables and would like to see the safety information there as well. And then the other thing that we've been working on, and you'll see this over time, is labels. So I want to take a quick moment to say with labels in particular, we know that everybody would like to create their own labels and their own sizes. We will eventually get to hopefully building something that you guys can do it yourself. In the meantime, what we're doing is providing the size of the labels, and you guys tell us how many slots you want, and then we'll go ahead and create those labels for you, and then they're available to everyone. So that's a note for a future feature that we'd like to implement. You'll see some of the labels are larger size here, and they're able to accommodate some of the pictograms as well. And then last but not least, we have another fun one that just came out with a QR code, and then the barcode is actually sideways on the container. So the other big feature that came out this year was a container search table. So when you are in inventory at the top of the page, you'll see a little icon that looks like a bottle. And in this screenshot, it's blue. And what it does is provide the users and anybody who has access to inventory the ability to find containers through a search interface. And what you can do, and with a gridded location, with a grid that you can see everything in. What you can do is when you first log in, you'll click on that and you'll need to come up to the hide filter panel, and you'll be able to expand it out and then select what you want to search. So you can search by asset or batch lot. So these are material libraries, or samples, or both. And what you'll do is you'll be able to see that, oh, and excuse me, chemical as well. You can put in a chemical search, and the same capabilities are there for similar full and extract, or excuse me, exact search. What you'll see is this ability here to identify the fields that you'd like to see on that table. So this is where you can identify what columns are going to be present in the values that you want to see come back. So the search panel on the left allows you to search for everything. The headers across the top will allow you to filter all the results, and you're able to identify which items you want to filter by using this little options icon here and then clicking off what of those headers that you'd like to see. Keep in mind though that those headers are what will be available for the export as well downstream. So if you want to have a very tall skinny, you can do that, or if you want a very wide table, you can bring back everything. And at the very top, you'll see the all and none capability as well, so you have quick buttons. If you have selected more than one type, so you have container properties, you have reagents and compounds in this scenario, because we've put in reagents and compounds as our material library. You have antibodies and plasmids and anything that you desire. You'll start to see that those are in their own columns and swim lanes, and so you can identify which of those headers that you would like to see. So with the filtering on the headers, one new thing that did come out recently is that you're able to put in a series of barcodes. So you can either scan barcodes or you can copy and paste a list of barcodes, and those will show up under your table. If you have anything that's a number field, you'll be able to see, similar to our advanced search, where you can do equals, is about, and so you'll be able to just click here and identify something more specific to what you'd like. For date fields, you'll see the same thing here. The date field defaults to before, but you can go ahead and change that to anything that you'd like. For the locations, you'll be able to do a type ahead for the path, and so it'll give you a series of items that are similar to that path that you've typed in. You also are able to move the columns around, and they are quote unquote sticky, so that will last until you clear your cache. And so every time you log into Signals Notebook and come back to this page, the order that you put them in will remain. You can also expand out so that if you have locations that are larger, you can expand the columns out large enough to see the full path. Okay, so talking about export, you can export this table. This became a really important piece to folks that are really wanting to make uh, reports on the data, like what's in this location, how many flammable materials do I have, overall, what do I have in a particular material type. So what happens is that the admin will need to give the user or user groups the access to export containers. Now, we do recognize that this is not just container information that can be exported, but material information as well. So we wanted to give that control to the admins. And so once a user has access to export containers, then when they create their query, then they can choose. So in this particular case, I've chosen 5 containers here. And when I go to the top right-hand corner under the 3-dot kebab, I can export just those 5 containers. If I don't choose anything, then no rows are selected. What will happen is that all of the containers will be exported up to 600,000. And the reason why we got to that was a full freezer, like a -80 freezer full of racks, full of 32 by 32 gridded locations would be able to be exported in one go. However, that may take some time to make that report. So what the users will see is a little purple box at the bottom, letting them know that this is in progress. And once that report is done, it'll show up under their Bell notification, and they can download directly from there. Or if they've already looked at their Bell notifications, they can come over under their username, do the bulk inventory bulk reports, and then under the inventory bulk reports, you'll be able to see export container, and they'll be able to download the report from there. Reports are only safe for 30 days because usually anything will be out of date pretty quickly when it comes to inventory and amounts. Okay. The other thing that we have introduced this year is the ability to allow users and user groups to move locations. This is with great power comes great responsibility. If you don't want people to move entire locations, please do not give them this. We are working on some other pieces right now, so you'll start to see more activity around maybe smaller amounts of moving locations and something more controlled. But in this particular case, it was very much for a lab that was moving from one location to another location. So they wanted to move the entire lab in one go, and that's what this does. Or if the freezer broke, you would be able to move the entire contents of one freezer into another freezer, and that's what this capability does. So the inventory's bulk results page has been getting a makeover, and you guys will notice that. And in one of those scenarios, the move report is always kept throughout the system because it's very important. If somebody's moved something, that you'll be able to go back in time and find out who did it and what was moved. So what you'll see here is that it will show the most recent at the top, but there's a show more here for if it's more than 20. And a little bit later on, you'll see that I have another screenshot about the bulk reports page. Everything's moved to the left. Okay, So another request that came in was the ability to show the grid coordinates for everything. So if it's the current location, and then on the next slide, we'll talk about home location, we show the grid coordinates in parentheses. So you can see here that in the hover over, it says B3, but if you look here at the locations, it gives you everything like D2, C2. We did the exact same thing on the home location. So if you wanted to print a label and have a container be put back to that specific spot, it will have the grid coordinates associated with it as well. So you can print that, and you'll see here in the home location, and anywhere the home location is shown, you'll see the parentheses. Continuing on the whole coordinates piece, the other thing that we've identified is that each of the locations that are a gridded location, we are now showing the available space. And so you'll see that next to the location off to the right-hand side so that everybody can see how much space there is. If the location is full, it will say full. Otherwise, it will show you how much space is left in that coordinate. And that's for everything, for move, check-in, check-out, order request, create, internal request. We are continuing on our process of adding bulk actions to an awful lot of spaces here, and you'll start to see that those come over to the container search table as well. In the past, we've been using this bulk scan area, and what we added here was the print barcode. So we had a request to be able to reprint barcodes or print multiple barcodes at once. This allows you to do that. You can do the search or the type ahead and type in your barcodes and be able to reprint all those barcodes by using the print barcode button. So this is our scenario back to the container search table where we're adding the bulk actions. So not only can you search and export from this, we want you to be able to do additional actions where I can change the status, I can change the current user, the amount, I can delete. So you'll see a variety of those are coming out in pieces. So already we have some, and there'll be more coming out before the end of the year because we have a couple more releases before the end of the year. In this particular case, users would be able to move the container from available to in use or in use to available. If they have edit capability, they'll be able to dispose of that container. There's a very few and finite people that should have access to final dispose, and final dispose is that scenario where you have to lab pack something and a third party is going to come pick it up from your location, and you need to be able to track that that material was in your location or on site and then was removed by this third party. Okay. Again, these reports are only available for up to 30 days. So when a user makes a change, you'll be able to see it, but after 30 days, it drops off. Here is the delete capability. So if the user has delete container capability, then they'll be able to see the delete button in bulk. Once you do that, that delete is not something that we can restore. It is gone forever. So you want to be very careful. We also confirm that you want to delete it. And then again, it goes into the report and is held for 30 days. So you can also update the current user. This is important in scenarios where I want to return a bunch of materials that I don't need any longer. I can update who is the current user. If it's not me any longer, I can also set it to unassigned because it's just going back into the general pool. Or if I need to assign everything to somebody else, maybe I'm going to be out for a while and somebody else is going to take over, I'm going to be able to assign all those containers at once to them. And like I said, the inventory bulk report page is getting a makeover. So you'll see in Signals Notebook, things happen repeatedly. We rework some pieces based on some feedback or how things are looking in the UI, making it as sleek as we can make it. So everything is now in the left-hand panel instead of across the top. Notification. So before, inventory was not, it just notified you regardless of whether you wanted notifications or not. So now we've added the ability for users to go in under their user settings in their profile, and they're able to turn on and off what inventory is alerting them for. Right, so another massive piece of functionality from this year is the internal request of materials. So before internal request, we did have an order request capability through the reagents library, and customers came back and said, hey, that's all well and good, but I want to be able to internally request something. I don't want to order it externally. So this is our internal request workflow. And there's a lot to it. So the internal request workflow is no longer in beta. So that just happened in this previous weekend. And what the users can do is they can come into any materials library and they can do an internal request. With the reagents, it's slightly different. You'll see it in the reagent screens. And what you'll be able to do is select from ordering a reagent externally or internally finding it in inventory and requesting it from there. But either way, the user can come in, they can do an internal request, and they can request the material be sent to them. And it could be just the asset information, or it could be at a batch lot level, and they would be able to request that. They'll fill out the form that says where they want it to be located, and they can put in an amount requested, a due date, items like that. Once they do that, it'll make a request, it goes into the queue. They can go back and edit that request, or they can just leave it alone and they'll eventually get their container based on what the inventory admin is going to do. So not only can the users request a material, they can also request a particular container. So they can go to a container and say, I want to request that container, or they can go to a sample, and in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the kebab menu, and what you'll be able to do is request that sample be sent to you. The same form pops up. They have to say where it's going to go to and the amount that they want, if they want to put in an amount, and it'll create a request for them. So now what do you do with all these wonderful requests that have been given to you? Well, now the admin will need to come in and they want to fulfill these requests. So if there's a container associated with it, then you can come in and just go ahead and fulfill that request. If you want to give the user the full container, no problem. You just fulfill that request. There's a bulk fulfill. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. When you fulfill the request, what happens is the location gets updated, the user, current user, and the status. So if it was in general population, then now all of a sudden it's associated, in this case, with Alex White. It's going to the chemistry lab and it'll be in use. Okay, and then we also have the ability to fulfill the request, but if it does not have a container associated, the admin will have to come in here, edit the internal request. If they click on the container ID button, it'll automatically pull up all the available containers of that given material. Because the assumption is that if you're delivering something, you're going to fulfill a request that you have something physical you're going to give the person, and it has a barcode associated with it. So come in, you are able to find the container, update that request, and then you're able to move ahead in the process. You also have the ability to do an aliquot. So maybe I don't want to just give them the whole container, I want to give them a portion of that container. You can click the aliquot button, and then you can the admin can identify how much they want to give them. So the number of containers, they might break it down to 1 to 2 containers. It's up to 10 that we support right now. And they go ahead and put in the amounts that they use. The amounts will be automatically deducted from the parent container. So if you go over the amount that the parent container thinks it has, it will warn you and not let you make those aliquots. So you want to make sure that the parent container is correct. So once you've filled in the form, you've identified that, it'll go through the container creation. At the end, what you're going to get is the barcode. So you'll be able to print that barcode, put it on the container, and then it'll put that into a pending status. This is to give the admin a little bit more time. Maybe they're doing a lot of aliquoting that day and they're not actually prepared to deliver anything to the users yet. So it goes into a pending status, and then it allows them to finish the fulfillment when they're ready to do that. We also have the ability to do a bulk fulfill. So if you have a bunch of containers and they're all ready to go and you just want to go ahead and fulfill them, you can go ahead and do that from the container page here. So the internal request will have a bunch of icons here at the side that you can click off. If you've selected something that doesn't have a container associated, or it's going to a very specific coordinate, then it'll go ahead and give you a message saying you have to fulfill that differently. You know, for the container, you need to associate it. For the slot, you'll need to go specifically to that internal request and fulfill it individually. But it will go ahead and do everything else that you've asked it to do. So for anything that's it can fulfill, it already fulfilled it, and then it'll just warn you of the ones that it can't fulfill. And last but not least, you can go to a specific container if you're an admin, and you can aliquot that particular container. So you don't have to go through that request workflow or any of the workflow we just went through. You can go directly to the container. Say you want to aliquot it. It'll do exactly the same thing, where it will deduct the amount from the parent container and go ahead and give you the screens to print the barcodes and put the labels on, and then it will show you the parent container information on that particular aliquot. So those are all the new features that we have touched on today. Of course, if you have questions, you can reach out and we will get your answers, but I would like to turn it over now to Lara to tell us about how the implementation went for her.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, Diana. May I have the control? Oh, thank you. Okay, here, let's start revolutionizing inventory management and R&D. The title sounds very bold, but it was really a huge change for us in our R&D world to have an integrated module for the inventory connected really to our Signals notebook. We call it Melinda. It's all about accelerating innovation, streamlining the workflows, and enhancing the safety in the labs. That's very important for us. And with help of the inventory module and Signals notebook, we could do that. Let me share briefly the topics I would like to highlight in the next more or less 15 minutes. Firstly, the key facts of the inventory project at EMD Electronics, the objectives and benefits, the scope, the steps for the implementation, for the different implementation waves, then some safety relevant features developed in-house, here really by our developer team, actively working on the inventory project. Of course, when revolutionizing the inventory management, when doing some bigger changes in the way of working in R&D, the changes bring challenges, and that's something I would like to share some quick challenges for you. However, with a really strong team spirit, a strong commitment to improve things, also with the support of Revity, these challenges become opportunities and ultimately leading to the success of the implementation. Now, some key facts to the inventory. Just firstly, to tell you where we're coming from, what is our reality. Our Signals notebook is called Melinda. We have here a broad user base within electronics, 680 users worldwide, located in the USA and Germany, in Israel, in the UK, in Asia, China, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, comprising more than 100 labs, lab departments, many of them also interacting, working globally on R&D projects. For now, we have experiments documented in Signals notebook, partially migrated, around about 40,000 experiments. Since the implementation of Signals notebook in April 2021 at the R&D labs for electronics, 20,000 or nearly 20,000 experiments have been created. The focus is really to streamline the documentation and the workflows within R&D with a tightly integrated inventory. And the challenges, or one of the biggest challenges, was the current situation of inventory management at a different size. There are a lot of legacy inventory systems, but these just used locally and not globally. A lot of labs working with Excel files for recording their containers, their inventory, and many more with unstructured documentation of chemicals and containers. Now, so our key objectives and benefits was really to streamline the research processes, to centralize data and inventory management in one united platform, to have one system for the lab data, the experiment documentation, the inventory, and safety documentation. We want to enhance the collaboration globally, share research and inventory seamlessly, and enable data integrity globally. To ensure as well the compliance and improve the safety in the labs. to maintain traceable and auditable records for safety and regulatory needs, to track chemical hazards, safety data, and storage conditions for specific containers. With it, we want to also boost productivity, to minimize the manual task for more research time and enable quick decision making with instant access to integrated data for informed and safe decisions. Safety is really very important to us. And finally, to optimize the inventory, to have real-time visibility and increase the cost efficiency with better control, reduced waste, reduced also time for searching for specific containers in the various labs, and to lower the costs. With these objectives and the expected benefit, we started our journey of implementing the inventory module from Signals Notebook. We had a first pilot, I think there the module was also very new to Revity. We started this first pilot in Q4 2021, here also with the participation of Richard as an observer. We noticed that we have many improvements that are needed. But the interest was there. We wanted to have that one platform with the experiment documentation and the integrated inventory. In the second quarter of 2023, we run a second pilot here with more sites participating. And we agreed we had some blockers and some enhancements still to be done. But here also with the commitment of Jen and her team and Revity, we decided to implement the inventory. And more or less it started seamlessly with the preparation of the wave 1 for the implementation of the inventory module. Here we selected 8 sites globally in the US and Asia. One of them had an Excel file, all others had a common inventory legacy system that we wanted to decommission. Of course, then the requirement analysis starts, the configuration starts, the development, and then to run the UAT, to get the approval from the site, it's fine. We are going go live, and the go live was in November last year. The second wave started immediately after. Here we decided to split the site because of the complexity, and but we had for 4 sites the go live in latest August of this year, at the end of August. Now, just to have a general idea about the geographical scope of the inventory rollout, the sites in dark blue or violet in the United States, here, for example, Branchburg, Carlsbad, Hometown, and Tempe, they are already using the inventory, partially from wave 1 and partially from wave 2. The further, for example, here in Israel, Jerusalem, in South Korea, we have 3 sites already using the inventory module. In China, the Shanghai site, and in Taiwan, 2 further sites. The one in the magenta color are the next that are rolling out the inventory. Partially they show a higher complexity, especially for example Japan, because there is the desire here to have some documentation in the local language. Now just to give you an idea about the general approach for the implementation. It takes more or less 6 to 12 months. It depends on the complexity of the inventory for each site. We select the sites regarding complexity, regarding strategy. Here for each site, we select an implementation manager, someone that is also willing to do the work. That's very important to have that connector. That person works as an ambassador for the inventory, but also a coordinator of the activities. Then, of course, to define the users that are going to work with the inventory, to train those users, to have the interviews with them, to gather the requirements, and to start the data cleaning, especially if we're talking about Excel files or other kind of sources for the inventory. We continue with the configuration here, also adjusting, for example, libraries, creating libraries according to the needs of the users. We develop the additional features that might be necessary. And then we run the tests of the migration of, for example, the creation of the location trees from one tenant to the other. This means from development system to the QA system to run then the UAT and get the approval for the final configuration transfer and migration into the productive system. And then we have the go live. Now let me just present some safety relevant features in-house developed, as mentioned it before. These are a huge benefit for our users. That's something that's not available in the system, but it can be realized by implementing the APIs offered by the system. One of the most important and currently the mostly used feature is the expiry notification. Here, when a container is close to or past its expiry, an notification is sent out to the responsible person for a container that's being documented in the properties of a container, and or a location manager, a location responsible. Imagine, for example, a lab manager responsible for his lab, for the safety in his lab, that would like to have an overview about the expired container in his lab. Although he's not responsible for the individual container. The email includes a table with links to the relevant containers and with the same content, an Excel file. That would help the user maybe to print out that list and go into the lab and see, okay, these containers need to be physically disposed, and confirm the disposal also in the system. A further feature working very similarly to the expire notification is the retest notification. Are materials prone to forming dangerous byproducts, as for example, some solvents forming peroxides that require regular testing independently of the expiry date. And that can be flagged under the material, in the material library under the asset level as an inherent property of the material. And under the container properties, a retest date can be documented. Once a container is close to that retest date or past that retest date, an email is sent out again to the responsible person for a container or the emergency contact. And then, of course, via link and maybe the list, these containers can be checked. A very important feature for our users is the automated retrieval of material safety data sheets. The material safety data sheets are automatically integrated into the material libraries at batch level via connection to an internal database for example, Sigma Aldrich products, and also third-party services for other suppliers. The main library, this means the library that is being used by the users in also their experiment documentation, allows the MSDS retrieval by default in English, but it's also possible to provide it in the local language, for example, Korean or Mandarin. But this is just possible if the material safety data sheet in that local language exists in the database. Nonetheless, that's also a very interesting feature. And we connected that to an MSDS versioning library that serves as an historical document repository. So during the time, maybe there are new versions of the MSDSs and they are all documented in the system. So the last feature, safety relevant feature, or here more related to regulatory reporting, is an app that was developed to analyze the inventory and identify the containers that need to be reported based on predefined or pre-selected regulatory lists. These lists, as you can see here in the example on the left side, are country related, and the user maybe in the USA can select, for example, a Tosca list. He can narrow down the analysis to the site, to maybe a building or even a lab. The reports include a table and an Excel file listing all containers requiring reporting according to the selected regulatory list for responsible parties or authorities. This is made once, twice a year, but it helps a lot to the responsible person for such a reporting to get a fast report of the inventory available. And it's possible, we implemented it, that it's possible to report that in SI metric units, but also in US customary units as shown here, where you can see the location, the regulatory list to be compared, the material, and the amounts. Okay, I said before, huge changes bring also challenges. And let us just briefly go through the challenges as mentioned it before. One of the biggest challenge is the data quality of the legacy systems. Many legacy inventory files and systems lack of data accuracy and require a significant data cleaning effort from the IT, but also from the side from the inventory implementation managers. There are, as always, some last-minute requirements that need to be taken care of. Nonetheless, we consider those as opportunities. We need just to really evolve the system. We need just to see it's maybe not done to the go live. It needs to be done after. Then, as mentioned it by Jen, she and her team made a lot of work on designing new label layouts that we requested, especially because we had some requests to the size of the GHS pictograms. Nonetheless, the label layouts are not flexible enough. Only with Revity support allows the implementation of new templates. One of the issues we had recently, especially because of the timing, it was a challenge. It happened during the go live at end of August as the PubChem connection. Here we had some issues. It wasn't connecting to PubChem. So, for example, the GHS hazards could not be updated for the materials migrated, and that could be only be resolved by Revity. It's done now, it's working fine. It was just from the timing unlucky. And then the reconciliation and export data. Here we need some improvements, for example, for the container grid view, the container search table, because some important data is not being transferred to that view. That's mainly related to the configuration, because this information was configured as auto text fields. Now coming to the success of the project, it's of course a great teamwork. Efforts from the team within the IT is not very big, with developers, contributors, configurators, but also the participation from the site, but as well the support from Revity, to listen carefully, actively to our enhancement request and to implement that continuously. Nonetheless, I want to share 4 awesome facts, and I decided to express that by numbers. Firstly, we have 11 sites globally using the inventory. 4 more are planned for end of this year, beginning of next, and further to follow. We have 13 cheminformatic and custom libraries depending on the nature of the substances of the chemicals and the information available that are in use with the inventory, connected with the inventory. We have there more than 8,000 materials documented, more than 13,000 batches documented in those libraries, and from there, we have already documented more than 22,000 containers globally that have been migrated or newly created by the users, and they are stored in 680 locations from the site going down to the building, lab, and maybe a cabinet, a shelf, a refrigerator. So it's a lot, I think, for the short time since the first implementation in November last year. And with that, I will pass over to Richard so he can share his experiences from the real world, the real world impact. Thank you very much.
So hi everybody, right? So Revity and Laura have asked me to come and talk about my experience with the inventory. So one of the things I really like about it gives us, we're a global team, right? So the best part of it is we're able to see inventories from our different teams globally, right? So in terms of having one single inventory has been, I think, a great help to us, right? I think with Signals, having to be able to connect with a lot of the scanner guns, right? You can use a lot of the guns that you can buy off like Amazon or whatnot, easy to connect, right? That has been a really good part for us, right? Being able to just connect any gun to scan as many containers as we can, transfer them or change owners. I think that has been very useful, right? From a safety standpoint, right? I think the best feature we use is the expiration dates, right? Meaning containers that may have higher peroxide that we may not want to keep or test, right? So having the system send us emails periodically to remind us what containers that are coming up for either retest or expiration that are expiring. I think that has been a key feature for us in terms of keeping us safe. So I think that's a really good function that we really enjoy. One of the things for us being in California is regulation, right? Chemical regulation from either EPA, the state, the county, right? So having an accurate inventory of chemicals that are regulated, right? Being able to use the app that Laura showed to determine what chemicals of interest depending on a regulatory list, and we report those to the different agencies periodically. To have that app actually combine actually seek out the containers that we're looking for per the list and how much we have on site. That has been a really big help since it already does all the aggregation by itself. So for us to report that has been an amazing help for us. The customer support has been really good, right? And every time we needed something, we always go up to Revity and kind of give them what we want. And they work really hard to kind of get us what we need. I think that has been a really big feature for us too. Being able to customize labels, I think being able to print GHS codes and having the barcode and now the QR code, right? I think that has been also a very key function for us. Different labs have different type of containers of different sizes. So having a customizable label, I think has also been really good, right? And I think the admin being able to allow different users, different functions, depending what role you play, and you're able to select at what level they're able to adjust, right? The container that's inventory has also been very helpful, right? So based on what I've seen so far, I think it has been really good simply because from a global standpoint, a lot of people can view the inventory, right? Not everyone can adjust it, right? But the fact that everyone can see from a global perspective, I think has been really, really helpful. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Richard. So thank you, Jen, Laura, and Richard for your insightful presentations and stories in regards to our inventory session. Now we'll move straight into our Q&A session of the day. So if you've not had a chance yet, please submit your questions through the question box located at the right-hand side of your screen. I will also have our speakers go ahead and turn on their webcams to show so that we can see their beautiful faces for the highly anticipated Q&A session. So I'll wait a little bit on that. So the first question, is there going to be possibility to return the containers to their home locations in this container search? So I'm assuming that goes to you, Jen?
Yeah, it does. I hadn't had that thought before necessarily. Like we had some stuff about the returning to the home location because you do that individually, but I'm gonna put it on the list and ask the devs. I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is internal request part of tasks and requests, or is it a different workflow in Signals Notebook?
It's a different workflow though. I understand how they're kind of intertwined and without giving away a whole bunch of information, there's more to come on both of those. So if you sit tight, you're going to see how these are all going to play together. Right now, you can associate a container with the task and request workflow. Task and request workflow is really built around the thought of asking somebody else to do something. An internal request workflow is really going to be built more around. And so you've seen the groundwork today that's being released or that has been released. It's about all the things I need for my experiment. So just because a task came in that said, oh, I want you to run this assay, doesn't mean that you have all of the materials to do that, right? You might have gotten the container with the material, the compound in it, to run that assay, but you didn't come, it didn't come with all the buffers, it didn't come with all the other reagents you need. So you're still going to build out your experiment, and then you'll see us do more with the internal requests for that particular workflow. So they are similar and they are intertwined in a way, but they are not the same. So thank you for that question though.
Right. What are the main challenges EMD Electronics faced before implementing Signals? Maybe Laura or Richard?
Sorry, say it again, please.
Sure. What were the main challenges EMD Electronics faced before implementing Signals?
To implement the inventory.
Mm-hmm. The challenges that were faced before you implemented the inventory.
We had no standards. Really, we have different tools, maybe, or different applications for running the inventory. There is one really very linked, historical link to systems in Germany. That's something that we need to focus on for the next wave. Just in general, Merck has internal, or EMD Electronics has internal standards for that.
Great. Can the inventory module be assessed, queried by an external system via APIs? So automated transport systems, if yes, are such APIs already there or planned in the future?
Yes, it can be done today. Yes, there are external APIs already there, and there are more coming as well. So if there's something that you need that you don't see, let us know, basically. But I do think that the majority of what you'll need is already there.
Yeah. What advice would you give other companies considering a similar implementation? So Richard or Laura?
Just in general, I think the great benefit of inventory is really this unique platform where you have your experiment, your documentation, you have the possibility to document your inventory integrated to that platform. And of course, under the libraries, the material libraries, you can there document a lot of safety information, as for example, also uploading or linking uploading the MSDSs or linking that to databases by using the APIs. And furthermore, as we have done it at EMD Electronics, to really implement some notification features for the users. That's all in one platform. And that's really very, very helpful to streamline the processes, to help the users to have not to search in different databases and different platforms, to have all that in one single source.
Great, thank you. What is the scope of the system? What type of materials can be managed? Is there a registration module that is able to capture and manage metadata?
Yeah, actually, all types of materials can be captured. We have a variety of things that are added all the time. So we have custom libraries, we have DNA libraries, primers, reagents, obviously, compounds, other chemically aware libraries. So I think this is a scenario where you might want to reach out to our FAST team or our demo folks and get an update on like what all the different material types that we support. And yes, that is a registration system, and that is what's integrated into inventory, signals inventory, and how that works. So absolutely. There's more being added too. There's a new beta one as well for mixtures, so something to keep in mind.
Thank you for that. And then for label customization, is the label color on an aspect that could be configured, and also choosing the label type, for example, cryogenic labels possible?
So for the colors, that would go through the printer more than anything. We don't dictate the color of the text. And then the types of labels, again, we're just providing the label and the information that's going on it. It's not a specific type of cryogenic label. It's up to the printer. So when we looked at the labels, I'll back up for just a second, because it's really important to understand that we didn't want to require customers to buy a specific type of printer or a specific type of barcode reader. So we tried to become very, very agnostic when it came to that. So that's not a specific type of file. What it does is it will create the file and the PDF. And then when you go to hit the print button, it says, okay, which printer do you want me to print it on? And then from there, you can make adjustments. So we're not controlling the color, and we're not controlling like you have to use a specific, zebra printer in order to print these out, because not everybody can afford that in their labs.
Thank you. How did you convince the lab to manage inventory and adopt a new role of inventory admin, which can sometimes be perceived as an extra workload? Does a lot of this usually fall on materials manager as additional role, or did you separate the roles? So this goes to Laura and Richard.
I think in general, the workload is at the beginning. When you start to implement the inventory, there, of course, for the data cleaning, the data accuracy, then establishing the new locations, maybe to build up that location tree, that takes a little bit of time. But once you have it, once it's ready, it's really worth it to put that effort in it, because it's much easier to, for example, run the inventory, to have a control on it, to dispose containers in the system. Also with this new feature, this container table search or container grid view, it's really easy to make an analysis of your containers with a lot of properties coming from the library down to the container. So I think at the beginning, yes, the workload is high. You need to put some efforts, but afterwards, it's really rewarded.
Great, and I'll just ask the last question since we only have 2 minutes left, but what skills, programming language are needed to customize the system with the available APIs?
So that is actually not a question that we're going to be able to answer here. This is something that we have another PM and a whole other group of folks that are available to do that. If you have access to a system, what you'll be able to do is go into the system config, and you'll see the ability to see the APIs, and there is a Swagger document that you can take a look at in there.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to end the Q&A session there, but of course, there are quite a few questions we didn't get to, but we will follow up with those via email afterwards. So thank you so much for Jen, Laura, and Richard for a great Q&A session. And then please note, showcased on our upcoming Connect date, as well as relevant links for further inquiries. All links will be provided in the chat box, as well as in the email that will be sent back to you later today. So thank you again for joining us today in our second to last installment of our 2024 Signals Notebook Connect community series. focusing on Signals Notebook. We will have our next session on November 6th, where we'll take a comprehensive look at the year's most impactful features and innovations. We hope you can join us. Reminder for all those who attended this presentation that you are already registered for the series, so no need to re-register for the upcoming sessions. In between sessions, you can stay up to date on Signals Notebook with Signals Notebook's new features and functionalities via our What's New session of the website and email communications. Links, again, will be provided. Thank you again to our speakers, Jen, Laura, and Richard, for your amazing insights in your presentations and a great Q&A session. We will address pending questions in the upcoming days, as well as share the presentation, and appreciate everyone's time for joining us today. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye, guys.
Appreciate it.